Salutes, salutes, salutes. It's your boy, Loyal, back again for another what I hope will be informative video. All right, y'all, jump right into it. Man, I've been having these interesting conversations with people about, things that we consume, things we eat, right? And you know what? Something always pops up in the conversation. Vitamins always pop up in the conversation. And I was talking to somebody about eating salmon versus steak versus pork, right? Salmon, steak, and pork. We was talking about, what you get out of each one of those. And I was telling people that they all share the same thing in common. And then vitamins came up, and I was like, God damn. It takes your body twice as long to digest vitamins. It takes your body 3.5 to 5 hours. I'm gonna say 3.5 at the least, 5 hours at the most to digest food, the meal that you eat, right? It takes your body twice as long as that to digest vitamins. So what is your body actually doing with the vitamins if they're not fully digested? Because it takes your food 3.5 to 5 hours to digest, and it takes your vitamins 6.5 to 7 hours to 10 hours to digest in the system. So food is not staying in your body that long. What is happening is your body is pooping it out. We aren't even digesting vitamins. Vitamins, some of them are not even water soluble, like the minerals, iron. It's not at least it's not in the human body. It's not water soluble. It needs to be broken down before it's introduced into the body. I learned this a long time ago when I was in the military. They send us to these certain classes and shit, and some of them include dietitian or dietary, classes and lessons and shit. Let me turn this music off. So the thing is that most people don't eat their vitamins with their food, and even if they do eat them with their food, right, they're not being digested. They must already be broken down in order for the body to digest them, because we don't have two stomachs like cows do. And that's one of the benefits of eating beef. The two-stomach method, chewing the curd, regurgitation, the re-eating again, and then fully processed food goes to the body. But the conversation I was having was about mushrooms, whether they're considered animals or plants, because the consistency is they don't even know if they're animals or plants, because they derive from fungus, right? A fungus such as like yeast is considered a fungus because of the way it multiplies, it grows. So the thing is that if mushrooms are a fungus and they're not considered animal or plant, what benefit does it have to eat them? And the same thing came up with the comparison of what's better for you or what's good for you. Fungus, if not mushrooms, I think are closely related, if they're animals, to octopus, to squids. That's if they're an animal. On the other hand, if they're a plant, fungus reminds me of, mushrooms, mole. Mole is a plant that grows on any substance that's moist, and it's in the dirt. It's in the dust particles, or what we consider dust particles. That's how mold gets into your house. And it mainly gets into your house in the bathroom, in the attics, in the crawl spaces, because the dust gets in through the windows or through the cracks and settles in moisture, so something that's leaking. So if you keep your house dry and moisture free, you won't have mold or fungus. So the thing is that Those are the two things that mushrooms resemble: fungus and octopus. Why is that important? Because we consume octopus. People eat calamari all the time. People have been eating octopus and squid for hundreds of years. So that right there brings to mind the question, what benefits does these things bring to your body? And I'm going to say this right now: none. It brings no benefit at all. Just because you eat an animal doesn't mean you're going to get a benefactor, a benefit from it. Just look at how we eat beef, pork, and chicken. What do we get from it? Chickens, right, are high in calcium, believe it or not, because they have to be in order to create eggshells. And eggshells are pretty much made of the calcium the chicken has in its body. So chickens have high quantities of calcium. Now, what is a calcium? Calcium is a rock. It's a mineral. It's a stone. It's a metal, right? You know, if you introduce water or raw calcium to water, what happens to it? If it's in an enclosed environment or a container, it'll explode, boom, because of the pressure. If it's not, then it's going to dissolve. It's going to burn away inside of the water. Why? Because water is an oxidant, and calcium is a water-soluble mineral. So that's why chicken is so valuable to us. What does cow or beef and pork give to us? Well, cows, like I said, I made the little gesture about the two stomachs. Cows are a refinery. They eat minerals, they eat vitamins, and they eat nutrients and process them for our consumption. Not once, but twice. Okay, so cow's stomach breaks down nutrients twice. Okay, so we can eat the readily processed minerals from the cow's muscles and bones. Okay, what about pigs? Pork, right, contains not only nutrients and minerals, but it also contains toxins. Now check this shit out. When I heard about this, I was like, what the hell? The pork produces toxins that we call carcinogens, right? Now, we've been told over the years that carcinogens are bad for us and all that shit. Well, they are. But there are carcinogens in nature that are good for you. For instance, resins and saps from trees that create some of the best fruits and flavors that we get in our fruits. How do you think the peach gets its juicy flavor from that little ball of plant fiber? It gets it from the sap of the tree. And the sap of the tree, of a peach tree, is considered a carcinogen. Look into that. I'm not going to talk too much about that because it blew my mind when I started learning about that shit. But we need carcinogens in order to survive. But too much of something will kill you, and the concentration of it will too. That's why older pigs are less desirable than younger pigs, because the older they are, the more carcinogens they have in their system, which makes meat selection very, very rare or very low. Okay, let's get back to the mushrooms though. Check this out. The mushrooms, right, contain something that humans contain. This is another thing that will pull it closer towards being an animal. Mushrooms contain biotin. Biotin. B-I-O-T-I-N. Biotin, right? Biotin is something that humans, all animals, need in large quantities. Some races of humans create biotin in large quantities. That's how we get stuff that's called pigments. What a lot of people are calling today melanin, right? So these bioteins are pigments, control different functions inside the body. Believe it or not, your fingernails it's not just these hard substances that grow at the end of your feet and at the end of your hands. These are actually pigments, concentrated pigments. And everybody has them. So everybody has biotin. Everybody has a pigment, okay? Also, what's a pigment on the body that we don't recognize? And when I found this out, I was tripping out. Hair is a pigment. That's why we have different types of hair. We have coarse hair, we have straight hair, we have curly hair, we have kinky hair, we have short hair, long hair. These are pigments. Same thing with your fingernails, pigments. Okay? These pigments are concentrated. Now, why did I bring up mushrooms earlier? Because we don't recognize that one of the supplements that we take to support these pigments are greatly derived from mushrooms. But there's a catch. And this is why I'm talking about it today. The catch is this. Mushrooms don't grow hairs. They grow spores. That's what biotin does to the mushrooms. It creates spores on the surface of the mushroom that looks like hairs, but eventually break off, float away, land, reroot, and grow an identical, well, not an identical, but a similar mushroom. Cloning, okay? So check it out. If we're taking a supplement that derives from that plant, and that plant is using that supplement to create spores of itself that do what? Shed, right? And become new mushrooms, then what do you think when we take that substance from that plant and consume it ourselves, what happens? We would take on the same characteristics, the same traits. That's why we have supplements from plants and from animals. Why would they just use a supplement from one source when they have a whole range of sources to gain the same supplements from? And on top of that, growing supplements from plants like, or plant/animals like mushrooms, it's very lucrative because you can create, millions, if not billions of these things in a short period of time. For instance, one mushroom can multiply itself 1,000,000 times because of not only spores and shedding, but if you take the mushroom and you chop it up into little pieces and you plant it, each one of those pieces will grow a mushroom. Sounds familiar, right? That's where they get the idea of cloning from. And when I heard that, I understood exactly why biotin is derived from not primarily, but largely from mushrooms. Because a lot of people is taking biotin to achieve a certain effect, which is longer hair, healthier nails, healthier hair. But in actuality, it's doing the same thing it's doing with the mushroom. It's shedding. So when you're taking this biotin that derives from, that's plant-based, do a little research on it and find out that it actually comes from the mushroom. The mushroom is easy to produce by the millions, which makes biotin easy to extract by the tons. So we're taking biotin that comes from mushrooms and your hair is still falling out and your nails are still brittle. It's because it's doing the same thing it does in mushrooms. It causes a shedding effect. Just like animals shed their fur, the mushroom shed its spores. And when we consume mushroom biotin, guess what we do? Think about it. Think about it. Now, is this something that's done accidentally? No. See, because They're not going to tell you where to get the biotin from animals from, but they'll tell you where to get the biotin from the plants from. Mushrooms, that's where they're getting it from. But are they going to tell you where they get it from the animals? Hell no. Because see, then you would have an alternative. And right now, we're living in a day and age where there are no alternatives. There's no second opinions. You know what I'm saying? There's no second diagnosis. It's hit or miss. It's one and done. You see? And this is how we are drugged through pretty much the trenches by all of this shit, because we don't take the time to do the research ourselves. Now, the organs of an animal is what create the biotin, because ultimately that's what the body is structured to do, to protect the organs. So one of the protections is pigment. So the organs create biotin from the substances they derive from nature. And there we have it. We create stuff like skin, hair, nails, horns, and shit like that to protect the primary parts of the animal's body. Same thing with the plants. Biotin creates twigs, leaves, and sap. And it's created by the organs of the plant, which is the roots and the circulatory system, which is like what we have in our bodies, but we call them veins, right? So that's important because we're on a roller coaster that only ends in destruction when we don't understand what's being used to create the things that we consider healthy. Now, to believe it or not, in some conversations, mushrooms are the healthiest plant/animals to eat, right? But in small, isolated conversations and communities that are growing, believe it or not, mushrooms are not. Matter of fact, mushrooms are considered invasive because they're not only are they considered, an invasive species, but they're also considered parasitic, not only to plants and soil, but to animals and humans too as well. Consuming raw mushrooms, just like in nature, if let's say if in nature mushrooms grow on a tree and then eventually spread and can take over that entire tree and harm that tree, kill that tree, because it's sapping away at its nutrients. The mushrooms are. And the way the mushrooms grow, they start off as one, and then they multiply and eventually become internal to the tree and live in some type of pseudo symbiosis state. Like, like the motherfuckers be watching Venom. Venom is living inside of that guy, and he helps him out. But in actuality, he's actually killing that guy. Because if Venom doesn't consume humans or consume meat, then it destroys his host. That's the whole storyline behind Venom. That's why Venom was considered undesirable, because people didn't want to eat other humans, or kill and eat animals and shit, or take over animals and absorb them. So that's just something else. But what I'm talking about right now with these mushrooms is that things that derive from mushrooms are going to react just like the mushroom. So don't be so quick to just jump into vitamins and nutrients. And plus, this is another thing. If the body is not absorbing these vitamins, then what are they doing? If you're not eating them and they're being absorbed by the body, you're either doing one or two things: pooping them out or storing. Do you really want to store an invasive species inside your body? Think about that. Do you really want to store something inside your body that grows expeditiously, that just keeps on growing? If nothing stops it, it just keeps on growing until it takes over the entire environment. That's exactly what fungus does. And I'm listening to people talk about this stuff. Man, you can't imagine how many, you know, videos I've watched on people making recipes with mushrooms, hardly cooking them, you know, because sterilization comes from heat. It doesn't come from anything else. That's why it's considered a sterile environment after you burn it or after you cook it. So by eating these things raw and eating them in a supplemental form, you are actually creating a culture inside your body that's eventually, through time and patience, going to grow and take over that environment. Now, I'm not a medical professional, but that sounds pretty negative to me. I don't want something I eat to eventually take over my body. Is that what people are trying to get around to? Is this the nature of all of this stuff that they're introducing into our environment, into our living, into our life? Something that's going to eventually take over you and be something that just walking around like some kind of zombie or some shit? I think that's at one point was the motive. I think at one point they were trying to find something that the entire population or all populations would consume that will cause them to fall up under some type of controllable trance that only a certain amount of people know about, that would utilize that as their opportunity to control the masses. And at some point they have done that, man. Look at all the illnesses that people have that are caused by, I hate to say this, allegedly medicine. Are these illnesses not real? Are these illnesses just something people made up? And where do they have to go to have the treatment for these illnesses? To the same place they got these medicines. And don't it seem weird? Why would you go back to the same person that harmed you in the first place for the cure for the harm they caused? Why would you do that? It has to be some type of psychological control that they have over people that gets them to go back to the same people that harmed them. I.e., almost like an unhealthy relationship, right? Like some kind of Stockholm syndrome. And the reason why this is done like that is because there's so many people that are under the influence that going against it will seem like you are the issue. You are the problem. So that's why I'm right now, it's not safe to speak up against these powers that's causing this. Because for one, your voice is very limited. And two, they control or are being controlled by people that have a foothold over all the communication systems that we use. For instance, YouTube is one of them. Say one thing about bad medical practices, and guess what? It's called medical misinformation. Allegedly. So I advise people not to actually talk about it, but to demonstrate it. And that's what I try to do in these little talks and these little walks that I do, is to demonstrate what is being considered a professional practice. Now, I was talking to one of my buddies about how can a track star, right, who is not as fast as the champion track star, but works his way to that point to where he becomes the champion. What occurs? And we were just going over just brainstorming this stuff and talking about how, a person that becomes good at a conditioned practice becomes faster at it. For instance, the guy that they made videos about making these pizza boxes, and when he first started off, how slow the process was. And then eventually he became the fastest pizza box creator or person that puts the pizza boxes together, to where he got a world's record. Now, this cat doesn't do any, drugs to get him to that point, but he's doing something that's considered, advanced in that field, to be able to put those boxes together that quick. You know, and that's so many numbers of them is amazing. But that's not anything different than a track star going out on the track and running, perfecting his form and his ability to put one foot in front of the other one. So the faster you can put one foot in the other and close the distance between point A and point B is what makes you better than other people. It's what makes you a track star. If you can master that, then it doesn't have anything to do with what you were born with. This is something that's developed over time through conditioning. The same thing when we look at these issues that we're having with our health. We're conditioned to go to certain lengths, to take certain measures in order to cure ourselves of these illnesses. And I don't think that is being respected by what we consider mainstream. Because if whatever I do to help myself can't be shared with other people, so they might be able to help themselves. So it's like, you shut up, you stand in the background, and you stop doing what you're doing because everybody else is going to benefit from it. And I think that's why it's considered, a practice, if that makes sense. A practice of what? I have no idea. Because I should be able to tell you what I did to relieve a headache or a stomach ache or, some type of skin rash or something. And you should be able to practice it. And if it helps you, be able to share with other people as well. But they don't let us do that. But look at the numbers of people that suffer under the professional practitioners. Millions per year. And they're not even trying to hide it. Millions of people a year suffer under the practice of healthcare. Millions of people. And I'm not talking about suffer as in their illness lasts long. I'm talking about suffering as in demise. Demise. So I don't know about you. If somebody walked up to me and said, hey man, there's a dude around the corner, he's selling fruit juice, and only 5 out of 6, died from it. But it's really good. You think that the 6th person is going to feel fortunate that he drank the fruit juice? No. This person is going to be suffering as well because he watched 5 of his buddies or 5 individuals pass away from drinking the same thing he drank. So if it didn't kill him, he's going to be worried to death that it is. So I don't understand how we keep falling into these situations where mass numbers of people will watch other people suffer at the hands or by the hands of a small majority of people and not consider them criminal. And not consider them criminal. You got to watch what you say around these people because guess what? It's a possibility that they could retaliate against you. And this is not a joke, man. There's been many of practitioners in these fields that have taken out people because of what they consider to be, moral. And the shit in reality is immoral. I mean, come on, man. You had a doctor down south that was switching babies. People didn't even take home their right babies. And 15, 16 years later, they found out that the babies were switched. And this person said that they've been doing it for many years before that and will continue to do it because they believe that we don't deserve to be treated as everybody else, as a normal person. You know what I'm saying? You got practitioners that were diagnosing people with diseases and illnesses that they didn't even have just so they can get treatment for it. You're talking about people that got hundreds, if not thousands of bodies under their belt and people still go to them for help. That's like going to a serial killer and asking the serial killer, could you help me with a gang problem in my neighborhood? What you think the serial killer gonna, what type of help he's gonna give you? And then is that help gonna, somehow revert back to you after he's done? Serial killer ain't gonna go to the neighborhood and be a mediator, help enforce laws. No, he's gonna go there and he's gonna start taking people out. Because that's what serial killers do. And we got these professional serial killers, man. They got hundreds, if not thousands, of bodies under their belt. And they able to go home and sleep, live a normal life, carry on with their family, do all the shit that we do, and don't even have nightmares about the shit. That's unreal to me. That's unreal to me, man. And you know what's even more unreal? We can't even talk about it on a public platform. It's like, come on, man. But we can talk about sex. We can talk about rape. We can talk about all that shit. Kids getting done. We can talk about all of that, but we can't talk about the elephant in the room. You see? All of this stuff stems from the same environment. All this stuff stems from the same environment. And if I was a religious person, I would say evil. But you got to be careful when you blame something on evil that's done by a man. Because men do shit like this to each other. And we call that depravity. We call that immoral. We call that demoralization. See, so you can't blame it on something that's external of that. I don't think we should. I think we should look at it for what it's worth and go from there. But this whole story came from mushrooms, y'all. Came from mushrooms, believe it or not. Mushrooms. So, next time you go to the grocery store and you start looking at what's healthy to eat, hey, man, just think about it. These things that we're picking out that's healthy to eat came from the advice from those practitioners who have killed millions. Salutes to the real ones. Till next time, walk with your boy.